Badgers fans, it's USC week. What are some keys to beating him? Who are some players that need to step up?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Thank you, as always, for tuning in wherever you're at, however you're finding it. If you're at work, if you're operating the juicer, trying to get some stuff ready for the kids, playing with the grandkids, whether you're biking around town, run some errands, whatever it is, thank you so much for tuning in, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's talk about it. USC week, big game. We're going to the Coliseum. Rajiv is going to be there. I'm so excited for this week. I hope Badger fans are as well. Wisconsin opens up as a 14.5-point underdog, which to me was surprising. That's a big number for a team that Michigan just kind of ran all over, right? And we're hoping Wisconsin can at least run the ball, and if they do, they shorten the clock. 14.5 seems big to me. I don't know about the rest of y'all. I thought it would be more around 10. Obviously, USC was going to be favored. They're going to be at home. USC's coming off kind of a tough week. Not a tough week, obviously. They had a physical game with Michigan. They got a couple key players banged up. Wisconsin coming off a bye, which I've already talked about, right? The bye is not the solve all 100%, but you are going to come into the game a little more physically fresh. You are going to be able to watch USC for a couple weeks and try to get some game planning in. 14.5 seems high. For the record, I would definitely take Wisconsin plus 14.5 this week. Maybe that's me with my bias on. Maybe that's me with my red colored glasses, but I would take that bet. Let's talk some keys. What are some keys this weekend to beating USC? I think the first one starts and quite frankly ends with B Locke. It's Braedyn Locke, and it's how do you get some easy things for him, and how do you open things up for him? What I think you can't do in this game is fall back into the traditional Paul Chryst methodology of run, pass, run, pass, run, play action, run, pass, run. You have to because USC. Listen, the book is out on USC. It's the book that we all expected, by the way. It's the book I did an offseason show on. They're not going to be physical enough in the trenches in the Big Ten in year one to hold up perfectly against the more powerful teams. Like, they're going to struggle stopping the run at times. Michigan just beat them throwing for 32 yards, right? Like, to some degree, USC's defense, they're better than they were last year. Make no mistake. They know where to go but up. But they are kind of who we thought they would be. Not quite yet physical enough in the trenches. You shouldn't get beat if the other team is simply not going to throw the ball, and they did. So they can be run on, right? You can be physical with them. But what Wisconsin can't do is get too formulaic. They can't just say, okay, Michigan ran, that's all we're going to do. We're going to run, only throw when we need to. I think you lose a game doing that. I think you have to give Braedyn Locke some first down throws, some second down throws, first down play action, and then do it again. You have to put a little fear in USC because I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to beat them, I don't think, by simply running the ball, because I don't think you're quite as physical as Michigan was. Not for the least of facts that Michigan has a 230-pound running quarterback in Alex Orji. Like, you don't have that. So knowing that you're going to have to throw the ball at least a little bit this game, it doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be effective. Think Scott Tolzien in the 2010 Ohio State game, right? Where it's not like he had a huge game, but he made key throws. He made some big plays. I think you have to let Braedyn Locke throw the ball on first down. You have to let him get comfortable. You have to try to get him some easy throws to get going. And if you do that, you get USC on their back foot a little bit, because then they're not just thinking run. They're at least understanding that the throw game's an option. I think you do that, and then you can start mixing in play action. Then you can start leaning on them if they have to back off a little bit. You have to get them comfortable. You have to. And if you go back to Braedyn Locke last year, throughout the Iowa game when he came in, because that was, it's much like the Alabama game when he came in. It's hard to come in the middle of the game against an elite defense. In his other three games, even though he wasn't perfect by any stretch, he spread the ball out pretty well. That's the other thing. They have to get other receivers, other targets involved. You look at the target distribution this year for Wisconsin, and it's Will Pauling has 29 targets. CJ Williams has 13. Ches has 9. So there's no receiver outside of CJ Williams and Pauling that really have any number of targets. That's not enough. Like, defenses understand tendencies really well at this level. Coaches understand tendencies. You have to do a better job of misdirecting of finding different weapons. And there's different weapons on this team. Like Vinny Anthony can catch the ball. Tretch can catch the ball. You have to get other guys involved. And that's actually something I think Braedyn Locke is a little better at than certainly who I think he's better at than Tanner Mordecai. I think he's better at it potentially than Tyler Van Dyke as well. Is I think he can spread the ball out a little bit more. There was games last year, his Indiana game, for example, he had 3 receivers catch 4 passes or more in that game. That was with Braedyn Locke at the helm. So I think you make it easier for him. You let him throw early, and then you try to find some other targets. Tretch Kahuna has 5 targets this year. Like, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And I'm hoping coming out of this bye week, you're able to scheme up a couple things for him. You're able to get a couple other targets involved. You let Braedyn Locke throw in situations where it's not necessarily a must throw, because that's what we were doing at the end of the Paul Chryst era. It'd be run, 3rd and 7. Now we have to throw the ball. Now they tee off on it. Now it's too difficult. You got to set him up in some situations to throw the ball. And I think if you do that, he can be a successful quarterback in this game. You're still going to have to lean on the run. You're not going to beat. I'm not saying Braedyn Locke throws the ball 40 times. I'm saying you let him throw it in spots where the defense isn't geared up to stop him. I think you do that. He builds some confidence, and then you can have more of a mix going forward. Second key, smart pressure on Miller Moss. You just saw a Michigan game where they pressured him on 48%, I think it was, of his dropbacks. 48% of his dropbacks they pressure, or 43%, sorry. Michigan got pressure on 43% of his dropbacks, but they only blitzed 21% of the time, meaning their front 4 did work. Wisconsin's front 4 is not that front 4. I wish it was, but you have to find a way to get pressure on Miller Moss, but you have to do it smartly. Like this is a Mike Tressel game to some degree. You have to get him off the spot, but Miller Moss has been good against the blitz this year. He's been very effective, passer rating of over 100 against the blitz. So you can't lay it all out there every play. You have to pick and choose your moments, and then you have to have guys win battles. The ability to get some pressure on Miller Moss without resorting to kind of all or nothing blitzes is going to be the defensive key of this game for me. Can you get pressure with 5? And so that's a combination of individuals have to win battles, and Tressel has to scheme some stuff up. This is not a great pass blocking USC team. I mean, we're not Michigan's defensive line, but Michigan's defensive line toyed with them. They made in-game substitutions trying to find the right mix against Michigan. You can get pressure on this offensive line if you can scheme some stuff up and if you can win some one-on-ones. This is a game where John Pius, Leon Lowry, Jaheim Thomas, Jake Chaney, Christian Allegro, those guys have to win their one-on-one battles. Because if we get pressure, it's going to come from those linebackers most likely. Maybe it's an Elijah Hills who's shown some of that as well. But it's going to come from the linebackers for the most part. They have to win one-on-one battles, and Tressel has to be really smart with when he uses that, when he dials it up, because you cannot just rely on the blitz against Miller Moss. He's proven he can beat it. He can beat it. He's pretty good under pressure. He's already shown it this year. You have to be able to get pressure with 5, because I don't think Wisconsin necessarily can do it with 4. But you're going to have to pick and choose those spots. How well our coach Tressel picks and chooses those spots is going to be huge for this game. Okay, so give Braedyn Locke some easy looks, give him some early throw opportunities, mix in some new weapons, and then get pressure with 5 and do it smartly. The last one is you can't beat yourself. We talked about this with the Bama game. They beat themselves. Bama was going to beat them anyway, but turnovers, missed field goals. Wisconsin is 14th in the conference in turnover margin. There's 18 teams in the conference. That's not good. Wisconsin is 12th in the conference in field goal percentage. You can't miss field goals, especially on the road against USC. You're going to have to hit those. Excuse me. 15th in the conference in red zone touchdown conversions, meaning when they get down there, they're not very good at punching it in. That was an issue last year as well. They scored touchdown on 54% of red zone trips. By the way, Ohio State scores the touchdown on 100% of their red zone trips so far. They're 11 for 11 of the year. If you want to look at the gold standard, Wisconsin's at 54%. They have to cash in when they get down there. And then the last one is penalties. Wisconsin has actually been really good this year. They're first in the conference in penalties. They're first in the conference in penalty yardage per game, only 17.7. So you can't beat yourself, right? You can't lose a turnover battle. You have to continue doing what you've done with penalties, which is a credit to the players and the staff. That's a huge win that they've pulled off so far. And then you got to score in the red zone, man. Whether that's making the field goal, which Wisconsin hasn't been great at this year, or it's punching it in, which Wisconsin's been bad at. Those are the key. Those are the broad keys to the game, right? Can you make Miller Moss a little uncomfortable without having to sell out consistently? Because if you do that, they're going to burn you. Can you get Braedyn Locke going, get him comfortable, get some early reps, get some nice wins for him to keep USC off balance? And then can you not beat yourself, which Wisconsin has? They've beaten themselves pretty consistently in big games recently. So those are some of my big keys to the game. We're going to come back. I'm going to talk about some questions that I think we're going to get answered in this game. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the number one source for all your sports betting needs, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Right now, they have a great offer, especially for NFL fans, which is now full swing. You can start big. If you bet in the middle of the game, you bet a $5 bet, you get $200 guaranteed in bonus bets. That's $5 when you place your first $5 bet. You're getting $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel.com. Great time to do it again. MLB playoffs are coming up. NFL is in full swing. Obviously, college football is going. Excellent time to head over to FanDuel. Quick, easy, smart user interface. Really quick and simple payouts. If anyone's been involved in other gambling sites, those payouts aren't always the easiest thing. FanDuel's made that nice and simple. Head over to FanDuel.com. Spice up your sports weekends. Spice up your sports nights with the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, let's get back into this show. All right, so questions that I think are going to get answered, and I'll apologize again if someone hears like deep breaths and stuff. I'm still getting over this chest cold I picked up, I think, going through the airport in Hawaii, so that's affecting me a little bit. But I appreciate everyone being here. The first one is these are questions I actually think we're going to get some answers in this game, some big picture answers. The first question I have is, can we run the ball? Which is wild as a Wisconsin fan asking that question, but can we actually run the ball? Is this actually going to be a team who can lean on the running game? Because one of the big things we talked about coming out of the first 3 weeks of the season was what? The first 3 weeks of the season, it was this team's going to have to win close games. They're going down the stretch, probably going to have to rely on the running game, keep it close, game management quarterback, and win tough games. Well, that only works if you can run the ball. That philosophy only really works if you can successfully lean on the run game. Wisconsin is currently 16th in the conference in yards per carry, okay, as a rushing attack. 16th in the conference. I'll remind you, there's 18 teams. Wisconsin is averaging right around 4.4 yards per carry, roughly. Again, they're 16th in the Big Ten. They're only ahead of Minnesota and UCLA. So can this team actually run the ball? Like, can this team actually take advantage of not just the USC defense that has struggled stopping the run, but can they lean on this against Purdue, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern? I don't know. I think we're going to get answers this weekend because USC is going to come in and they're going to try to put up a brick wall. They're going to hear all week about their performance against Michigan. They're going to hear all week about how they can't stop the run. They're going to see film all week of their run fits. They're going to know they're coming in and playing a backup quarterback, Wisconsin. They are going to come in trying to stop the run. They're going to focus on that. And if they lock us up, you got to start wondering, because USC is 16th in the conference in rushing defense. They're giving up 5.31 yards per carry. On paper, this is a battle between a guy rolling a ball uphill, which is Wisconsin's rushing attack, and a hill with no gravity, which is USC's rushing defense. Like, both of these units have been objectively bad. And if you're Wisconsin and you come out and you can't run the ball against a defense that hasn't been very good defensively against the run, I think that might answer the question that, no, this is not a team that's going to be able to lean on the running game. Now, USC is going to load up. So I don't expect Michigan's results. Like, I don't expect you to be able to run for 250 yards and 6 yards per carry, 5.5 yards per carry, but you better be able to average an effective 4.5. You better be able to move the chains on the ground. I think we're going to get that answer. I really do. You look at what the game script for this is. Again, one of my keys is getting Braedyn Locke going early, but that's only in the sense to let you run the ball, right? This is not a Braedyn Locke who is going to carry the game on his shoulders game. This is, you have to get Braedyn Locke going so you are allowed to run the ball. So you're allowed to lean on your veteran offensive line. So you're allowed to use your 3 or 4 running backs. That's it. And then those 3 or 4 running backs have to be able to take the game home. Can they? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. Put it in the comments. Like, do you think this team can actually run the ball? Do you think they can, down the stretch of the season, lean on that running game? I think they're better than the numbers have shown. Like, for fairness, they played Alabama. That's a tough sledding. But they've also played Western Michigan and, South Dakota. Like, it hasn't been great. I think there's more meat on the bone there. I really do. I don't think Ches has been great. I anticipate some rotational shift there, maybe to get some backs in there that are going to be a little bit more effective. Tywee's been a little hampered with injuries. I think getting him back healthy, maybe a few less carries for Ches. I do think this offensive line can run block. I think they're powerful. I think they're a veteran unit who can create some holes. I think those holes have been there this year. When you go back and watch film, a lot of these holes have been here. And quite frankly, I don't think the running backs have done the greatest job of hitting them. So I expect the running game to be better, but we're going to get some answers there this week because you have to be able to run the ball against this USC front. And if you can't, that's major issues. Next question I got here is rotational changes. I think we're going to, coming out of this game, get a feel, because this is one of the last opportunities for the staff to really make some bigger changes early in the season, right? So you're still kind of, the first couple weeks, you're kind of learning your squad, learning your team, getting the first live action film. Early season bye, coming off a big loss. This is an opportunity for, coming out of those 2 weeks of prep from Alabama to USC. This is a great opportunity for the staff to tweak, to adjust, to change things. After this, again, I mean, you are going to have another bye, but after this, it's a lot of reviewing game, prepping for the next, reviewing game, prepping for the next, nursing injuries. If you're going to see some of the changes that a lot of fans have been wanting to see, whether it's inside linebacker rotation, running back rotation, maybe a few different weapons like receiver that I've talked about starting to show, I think you're going to start to see it this week. And if you don't see it this week, I don't know if you're going to see it for a while, right? It might be a while then. So questions I think we're going to get answered this week is, can this team actually run the ball? Because if they can, they better be able to show it against USC. Are we going to see some of the changes fans have been hoping for? Excuse me, some of the changes fans have been asking for. And I think the last answer you're going to get to a question is, should we feel optimistic about this team? I think you're going to get that answer this weekend too. If they come out and, again, USC is favored by 14.5. If they go out and they lay an egg, if USC beats them 30-10, I don't know. I think you probably kiss the winning streak goodbye. You probably kiss the bowl streak goodbye. You feel a lot less optimistic about the Nebraskas and the Rutgers, and you feel probably wholly on optimistic about the Penn States and the Oregons. But if you come out and you beat USC, I think suddenly you're 3-1, right? You split your first 2 tough games. You're kind of in a better spot than a lot of people would have predicted record-wise. I think you feel great. And even if you come out and play a really tough, close loss to USC, I think you can build off that as well. So questions answered this weekend, right? Can you run the ball? New players in the rotation, and what's the trajectory of this team? How do you bounce back from that Bama beatdown? Like, how do you bounce back from that? If it looks a lot better, if it looks more competitive, you feel a lot better going forward. If it's another one, boy, this season could spiral quickly. This is kind of that last outpost on the desert road to optimism, right? If you don't cash in on this outpost, you're going to head out into the desert without much water and without a whole lot of hope. So I hope. I do think, to answer those questions, I'll just throw my answers out there. Let me know in the chat. I do think Wisconsin's going to be able to run the ball against USC. I do think you're going to emerge from this game with a better feeling for this team than post Alabama, like a more optimistic feeling. I think fans are jumping off the bandwagon a little too quickly after Alabama. Maybe that's just copium and hopium on my part. I think they're going to play pretty well against USC. I think they're going to cover the spread. It's going to be a close game. I don't know exactly if they'll be able to get to Miller Moss. Defensively, I think there might be some issues in this game, but we'll see. Coming up next, let's talk about players or player groups that need to step up. It's not all on the coaches. We put a lot on coaches, a lot of criticism. There's some players and player groups that need to step up too. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy was, I'm not even going to lie, they were like my MVP on my Hawaiian road trip, on my Hawaiian work trip, right? So after work, maybe go get a 5 Hour Energy, and then I'd go check out the strip. I'd go for a hike. I'd go snorkeling. I saw this crazy school of fish that I thought was stalking me for a second. I never would have done that if I didn't have the energy to do it, right? That's what I use 5 Hour Energy for. It's quick, it's small, it's portable, it's easy. There's no sugar because Lord knows I get enough of that. Trying to ixnay that, by the way. So 5 Hour Energy is there for me on my journey to have a little more energy, to get a little bit more done in my day. To be sugar-free, which is great. And they have great flavors. Also, we have a great offer for you over on Locked On Badgers. Right now, head over to 5hourenergy.com and get some of your 5 Hour Energy product today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB. And you get 20% off your order. Can't beat that. Because you're going to get energy. You're going to get more things to do. 20% off your order. Come on now. Offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. Cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Head over to 5hourenergy.com today. Get a little bit more energy in your day. All right, let's talk some positional groups, some players that need to step up. Because, again, we've talked about coaches a lot. We've talked about Longo. We've talked about Tressel. We've talked about Fickle. all of that, a lot of those criticisms, I'm not saying they're not true, but players got to execute. Players got to make plays too. Running back room has to step up, man. Like the running back room has to step up. I'm sorry, like this running back room is too talented to be 16th in the conference in yards per carry. I don't I like Tyree Walker was at 4.5 last year at Oklahoma. Ches is a career better than that. Dupree and Jones are talented young running backs. We've seen, and this number would be even lower if it wasn't for Yak. Like that running back room has to step up, period. First of all, that means stop fumbling the ball. Hold on to the ball. Ches has lost 2 of them. Yak lost 1. Those are your veteran dudes, man. Hang on to the football, period. Inexcusable. No more. 2 hands on the ball. And then you got to start making some people miss. I thought there was an opportunity in that Bama game, and this was actually on the Ches fumble. He could have, that could have been a bigger run, and he almost kind of committed to just going down. Like, you have to make some people miss. You have to make some plays. Be a little more patient with the holes. I think there's been a little, this is something Coach Anderson has talked about, seeing a little impatience in the running backs, not hitting the holes. That room needs to step up. They need to make some plays. They need to break some tackles. This is running back 16th in the conference isn't acceptable. It's not. Y'all, it's a better unit than that. Even if it's not a great unit, it's not the 16th worst running back room in the conference. Absolutely not. Make some plays, hold on to the football. That group has to step up, period. Have to be better. Have to be better. Next group is the receivers. That group, again, you got to step up. And there's 3 things specifically I want to talk about with this group. The first is y'all got Braedyn Locke in the game now. You got to make plays for him. You have the backup quarterback. You have to make plays. This is a unit that's already had a couple drops. CJ Williams has struggled a little bit with the hands. Pauling has. You have to hold on to the ball. No drops. This was a spot that hurt, by the way. This was last year, but this was a spot that hurt Locke a lot last year. There was a ton of drops. Now, some of those guys are no longer on the roster, but you have a backup quarterback. You have to not just make the catches you're supposed to make, but make some of the catches you're not supposed to make. Think Will Pauling last year in the Illinois game, right? Kind of jumping underneath the corner, getting up, getting that ball, getting the touchdown. You got to make some of those plays for your quarterbacks. I scan around college football and you see sometimes quarterbacks just throw that 50-50 ball. Sometimes it's not even 50-50. Sometimes it's like 30-70, right? And the receiver comes down with the 30% catch. You have to, like, the receivers have to step up, get open, run crisp routes, get on the same page. And this is not all on the receivers. I get it, but it's been a minute since we've had a receiver, maybe other than Pauling, and even Pauling hasn't made a ton of them this year. Like, make a play, catch a ball and then break a tackle, like Bryson Green did at Oklahoma State. Go up and catch a jump ball. And if this group isn't doing it, get Chris Brooks in there. Get Tretch in there more. Tretch has 5 targets this year. Like, backup quarterback, running backs have running game hasn't fully got off track. That the receiver group has to step up. And if the group isn't doing it, find someone else to do it. I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is, man. It's a production-based business. And that group hasn't been good enough this year. Got to catch the ball. Got to get open. Got to make a play, period. And the next dude, Chaney and Thomas, the inside linebackers. I was really high on Jake Chaney coming to this year. I still am not writing it off, but he hasn't been good enough. And when you're in there as a leader, you have to hit the right holes, man. He's overrun some stuff. It's almost funny. I feel like he's gotten faster and more athletic, and because of that, he's almost running himself out of position. I don't know. I thought he was a little better in the Bama game second half, by the way. I do think, yeah, like, he was starting to show some of what I was hoping to see, but he's got to play a little better. Jaheim Thomas has to be the difference maker we were hoping for. Those guys have to step up. And then on the outside, Pius Lowry, Darrell Peterson, you have to win your one-on-one battles. These are tackles that Michigan beat like a drum last week. They were consistently able to get pressure, and a lot of that was off the edges. You have to be able to win some one-on-one battles this week, because if you can't, and I say you to the outside linebackers, the edge guys, because the defensive line is just, outside of Elijah Hills, has not proven they can do that. So the pressure is going to have to come from the linebackers, which means you have to win some of those one-on-one battles on the outside, because you can't send 6-7 guys against Miller Moss. He's going to carve you up with deep shots. You can send 4, you can send 5. That 5th guy coming on the edge, you got to win a one-on-one. You got to. This is why you're here. This is why Wisconsin went out and got a John Pius. We went out and got a Leon Lowry. This is why Darrell Peterson came back, right? You have to win some of those battles. You're not going to win every one of them, but you can't get stalemated all game. You have to get pressure, win some one-on-ones against the tackles, because if you don't, you're not winning this game, period. You're not going to win this game if you can't win some of those one-on-one pressures, in my opinion. Because if you have to overload blitz, if you have to become too aggressive, Miller Moss has proven he will stand in there, he will take a hit, and he will deliver a ball, and they're going to bust some if you're playing some jailbreak type stuff. So it's not going to work. You can do it once in a while and maybe catch them off guard, but for the most part, your fifth blitzer, your fourth guy off the edge is going to have to win battles. Those groups to me have to step up. I'm not going to say Braedyn Locke has to come in and step up because he's number 2. He just has to be competent. I'm not going to say the defense line has to step up because they just got to stalemate guys. And I don't think there's a higher ceiling for there, right? I think the receivers got to step up. The running backs got to be better. And on the outside, you have to win some one-on-one battles. All right, a ton more coming up this week. We're going to have a USC guy on. I think Curtis Holland's coming on. I think Nick Osen's coming on. Yeah, I think we had someone else coming on too. A bunch more coming up this week. USC week, huge week as always. On Wisconsin, when you're done here, go check out the Locked On College Football Podcast, 24/7 coverage of everything going on in college football. This has been the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Badgers. Really do appreciate every single person tuning in. On Wisconsin, we'll talk tomorrow.